I see my sisters. I see my sisters in the house. Welcome to LoveBabz, Love Talk. I see Dr. Karen DeBose Walton and I see Karima Meekins Weber. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karen, unmute yourself. Karima, I love your hair. You know, I had that hair.
Thank you.
You know, I had my blonde.
A
couple of years ago, I was on a Blonde Ambition tour too. So.
Good morning.
How are y'all?
Wonderful. Good to see you.
It is nice to be seen and not viewed. I will say that. I'm so glad that you all are here. We got so much good response. People were buzzing about this on social media. So I'm so happy to sort of do this. So is anybody else joining us this morning? It's just you two?
No, I believe Lamara Russell will join us.
Okay.
She's the treasurer for Ella's Fun Pack.
All right, so I want to get started. So Karima Meekins Weber is the chair. And so Ella's PAC is a political action committee that these women started. So Karen, what was the conversation? Like, what drove you to start this? Like when you woke up one day and said, you know what I think I need to do on top of the 50 million other things I'm doing? Let me start a PAC.
Absolutely. You know, this has been a conversation that I've been having with different people for a long time about the need to build the political power in our community. And this is just a moment, right, where the whole country and this community is having a reckoning around racial inequities and racial injustice. And there's so many pieces to come to play to address the issues in our community. But one piece of that has to be our political power. Mm-hmm. And the ways in which we build political power. And so a political action committee is one tool for funding and engaging and supporting the building of political power. And we are focused on the more marginalized communities, the Black community, the Brown community in New Haven and in Hamden. And so as I thought about it, I thought about the other women that have been doing incredible political work and have shared that passion with me in different ways. And the first person I called was Karima. So she was excited to take on the role of the chair of the PAC. And we brought on Lamara Russell. And so the three of us are either New Haven or Hamden residents, homeowners, stakeholders, constituents who just feel really passionate about building political power in our community.
So when you talk about political power, what are we talking about? Now, we're not talking about like storming the Capitol with torches. Like, what are you talking about when you say political power? Although I kind of like that idea, but all right.
Talking about the fact that every adult in this country has the right to vote. You know, save a few who've lost that right. But their most fundamental civic right is the right to vote. And we see as a country that we do not respond in the way that we should, with about half of the country turning out to vote in any given election. New Haven, on a really good election, you might see 62% of the registered voters turn out to vote. But that means that, you know, 4 out of every 10 eligible voters in our community is opting out. And then when you dig deeper into that and you look at that breakdown by community, you know, in New Haven, the more predominantly Black and Brown wards tend to have voter turnout that's more like 30%, right? So we have this ability to impact our everyday life in the decisions that are made by our elected officials that is going untapped. And it's going untapped because people are not offering things to our community that is making our community excited about exercising their voice, not making them feel like their voice matters. And so this is really about a campaign to empower our community through education, understanding the process and understanding how you fit in the process and how your voice matters. And then giving people something to be excited about in terms of candidates. So looking for those candidates that are out there, that are doing it for our community in positive and progressive ways, that are really moving forward a racial equity agenda, and giving them some support. There are grassroots leaders that if they had some support to run through the process, had endorsement, had some funding to run, would make amazing spokespeople for our community. And so that's what we hope to do.
I was reading because you sent me the list of these sisters' bios, like I don't know them, but I do know them. There was a piece in Karima's part that says Karima is devoted to amplifying the voice and voting power of people of color and eliminating the fundraising challenges community members may face when running for local and state office. That is a huge piece of why folks don't run for office, because they believe that only the very rich, and historically, and we see this all the time, that only the very rich can run because they're the ones that can, amass the big war chest to launch campaigns. So Karima, talk a little bit about that and why that is important.
Yes, I agree. Good morning, Babz. I read somewhere, and I can't remember, that 8% of the assets that African Americans use we use it for charity, right? And about 2% of our white counterparts, they donate to charity. And so when I think about it, it's like we have this huge opportunity, recognizing that charitable donations and all that is really important to our community. But if we were able to shift some of that, the donations and the things that we do there towards supporting candidates in elections, that would be extremely helpful. So I've had many conversations with people. You think about women and what they say, like, it's really hard for women to run for office. They have to be asked, I forget the number, a gazillion times, I'll just say many more times than men. And then you add in the layer and the barrier of not being able to finance that. And so, that is one of the things that was really important to me, as we, Karen had engaged, was like, this will give us an opportunity to take that barrier out so that people, who have passion, who have those transferable skills, that are leading organizations that may not have even thought about working in a political forum, but taking away that barrier so that that's not an issue. And so that's why Ellis PAC is really important, so that we can pull in resources from our community for our people to help them run for different positions.
You make a good point, because I've ran for office twice in my life and won twice in my life. And so I get to talk about these matters from a place of from lived experiences. And I kind of hover around the political spectrum a little bit. And I can tell you, white women, Black women, we don't write the big checks the way white men write big checks. White men will go to a political event and write a $5,000 check and won't blink. Women will go to political events and have to be concerned about if the lights have been paid, if the groceries have been paid. They think about all these things before they write the big checks. We'll write $100 check. We may even write a $200 check, but we're not writing those big checks. And that seems to be one of the reasons why women are a little hesitant about raising money. And secondly, I don't think women are comfortable asking for money. Men have no problems with asking money. White men wake up every day in this country and feel like, I'm gonna be whatever I want to be, and I'm gonna ask people, I'm gonna command people to give me money. Sisters wake up and we have to amass the whole diaspora to get some money. And I'm happy that this PAC is existing so that we can sort of change that conversation so that sisters can write big checks. So I'm excited. So Lamar, your position in all of this, and I'm reading your piece, is that you're interested in solidarity and bringing people together. And I love this because there's so many different ways that Black people are Black people that have to be considered when you bring us together. And if folks can understand that, I think we could have a larger turnout in these voting blocks instead of thinking of us as a monolithic movement. So talk a little bit about your rationale and reasoning for getting into this PAC. And then Karen, we're gonna come back around. You're gonna tell me why Ella, why the name Ella.
Absolutely.
Actually, I was going to add that in there too. Good morning. So basically, when Karen reached out to me, it was a key time. I actually found myself a bit outraged, upset with things going on, all the blatant disregard for Black lives, color lives, and, disparities amongst our people. And I'm just like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's great we have the protests and different things like that, but I'm not the one to be in the front lines, you know? And how can I give back? How can I use my skill set to give back? You know, my career's in finance. That's all I've pretty much knew that I know. And how can I give back with that? So Karen reached out to me and she was just like, hey, Lamar, are you interested in being treasurer? I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is perfect timing because
you can't really say no to Karen.
No.
There is that, right?
Exactly.
Let's just put that on the table right now. Right. There's no no to Karen Walton DeBose.
Exactly. So, you know, it was just like, it was the perfect timing. And I was just like, I put this on my plate right in front of me because I want to do something. I want to give back in my way and make a difference. So, you know, this has all been a great new learning experience. The thing I learned about, and I love the naming, Ella, I mean, I know that Karen will talk more about it, but, you know, doing research and everything, Ella was key in a lot of the financial support in you know, the Black community in regards to, you know, politics. Key fundraiser for SNCC, SCLC, all of those, even for the Urban League in Harlem, she was key in that. And NAACP, she was a key fundraiser for that, and recruiter. So that goes back to you saying the women, we a little tight on our purses, you know. She was big on getting people to open up their pockets and support and everything. And she was really big in the movement. So I think that everything ties together. It's perfect. And I'm super excited. Like, my thing is in the New Haven community, I feel like we all have a mission that comes, like, it's all one. If we really look at it, we have different paths to getting to that, but we want the end result. We want equality. We want an opportunity to have our voices being heard. And that's what I want to do. I want us to educate ourselves. I want us to kind of get on the same path to being heard, you know, and it starts locally. Honestly, it starts with us right here in our village, and it goes up from there. So, yeah, so that's basically that's the key part about the solidarity and education for me. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to be brought on.
I can tell. I love the enthusiasm. Okay, Karen. So, all right. So you call this Ella's PAC, and why? And what other names were you considering?
So we're Ella's Fund PAC. There is something else in Connecticut that's Ella's PAC that's named for some other famous Ellas. So we're Ella's Fund PAC, named, as you've mentioned, after Ella Baker, who has been my longtime political shero. She is was an amazing civil rights leader whose name is not as well known as it should be. Like many of the strong Black women who were the movement leaders alongside of the men that we know so well, the Dr. Kings and the A. Philip Randolphs and the C.L. Vivian or Congressman John Lewis, right? We know their names so well. Well, we need to know the names of the Dorothy I. Heights, and we need to know the names of the Ella Bakers and the Diane Nashes just as well. So she epitomized, though, participatory democracy. And that is so much what the feeling that we want to bring to this process of trying to build political power. This is not meant to be a top-down kind of process. This is really building the power of the people. And she really, you know, one of her quotes that we've really resonated with has to do with give people light and they will find their way, right? That you can empower people, and people have the intrinsic knowledge and strength and capacity to know the direction they need to head in and to move in that direction. And our role is to amplify and to illuminate that way so that people can move forward. So she, you know, Lamar mentioned, I mean, she was foundational in the NAACP. She was foundational in SCLC. She was also foundational in the formation of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Council. And the other piece of this that just resonates so much for me is youth. And she was so key in the student organizing that led to the lunch counter boycotts and all the work of SNCC. And it so resonates with the young people that are leading the movement for us today around Black Lives Matter and around highlighting the racial injustices. And so if we can be help to youth leadership and the development of our next generation. I think that's something that we want to bring of Ella's legacy into this as well. So there are many ways in which her life and work aligned with what we were trying to do here, and she seemed to be the perfect person to name our PAC after.
So Black women in PACs are not a known entity. What is our historical connection or commitment to this? I only know of one other PAC in New Haven of Black women, and I remember the Sojourner PAC that was started by which I still think is I think they're still very present or active. You know who I'm talking about from way back.
Sure.
The Sojourner Network PAC. And I remember the buzz around that and how excited women were about joining that and some of the work that they've done. So do you have some sense of the history and our numbers in terms of how we participate in PACs as Black women?
I can't give you any specific numbers, but I think, Karima pointed to the fact that first of all, you far too often hear people say, "Ooh, politics, I don't want to be involved in politics," and just sort of back away from politics, especially I think in our community. Understand is the way in which politics intersects into everything. And what you're saying, you don't like, there are aspects of what people think of as politics that, rightly you shouldn't like. It feels divisive or nasty or ugly, right? But there's another way of thinking about politics. That's the way of which you bring people together around shared issues, build a constituency, and use that constituency to affect the change in your community, right? And that's a politics that is at play in every aspect of our lives and that we have to be engaged in. And so I think one is we want to make politics very accessible to our community so people understand. Often, something's wrong in the community and folks want change and they don't even have a good sense of sort of who is the person in charge that I go to make that change at the local, state, or other level. And so that community education, I think, is a big piece of it. And then, how we make politics accessible through the PAC for candidates who might want to run. So we have a website that's going to be launching in the next couple of days, and on that we have a whole host of issue statements that outline the kinds of things we support. Those are the kinds of things that we will be funding community education around and engagement around. And it also has the process by which, if you are a candidate that would be seeking an endorsement from us, the process by which you could go about that. And then importantly, because we are a political action committee, what we do is we raise money to do these things. The website includes how you can contribute to us, and Lamar can speak more to the details of that. But it is a tool for raising money, and so our website will give people access to that as well.
So are you going to be identifying candidates that you can get behind? Is that going to be a part of this? How are you going to raise awareness about this PAC with people? How are people going to know what you do?
So this is part of it, right? Being on LoveBabz, LoveTalk, and getting the word out. And it's doing, we are 5 Black women who are not going to be shy about asking people for support. So as you talked about at the beginning here that, women don't always want to ask for money. Part of this PAC is about asking people for support. So it starts with us in each of our networks and it builds out from there. As people get excited about it, we hope that they'll help spread the word as well. Through our social media, through our website, we'll be reaching more and more people. And we are a Connecticut-based PAC, so we can do local elections in Hampden and New Haven as our focus area, and we can do statewide elections for folks that are representing Hampden and New Haven neighborhoods. So that's our focus. And so in each election cycle that includes local or state elections, for folks that would be representing this community, that would be the time when our endorsement process happens, and we would be making that aware to potential candidates, letting them do our application so that we can vet them and see whose platform and whose body of work in grassroots leadership and in formal leadership, whose body of work really aligns with the platform we have around ending poverty in our community, around educational outcomes for our community, around economic development, around healthcare access, around environmental justice access, right? So all of these issues that you'll read more about on our website, we're going to be looking for the folks who have a track record in that area of really serving our community in equitable ways that brings a racial justice and a racial equity frame to those. And we want to get behind them and help bring them to victory so that they can do their work at the local or state level.
And it's good that you are framing this out, because people get excited about the presidential election at that level, but all politics are local. It's what happens in your everyday practical lives that makes a difference. And sort of what happens is people sort of bypass the local elections and they have low turnout because they're not as sexy and as glamorous as the presidential. Everybody gets excited about, but it's really what happens at your school board level, what happens at your mayoral level, at your governor level, at your state's state level. That makes all the difference about your everyday practical lives. And so I think this is a wonderful sort of effort to sort of help people understand what this process. Do you all find that, at least I'm finding that less and less people understand the political process, just the way to vote and how to vote. It seems to be lost. And I would attribute that to, when I was coming up, you had like social studies and civics classes. Do you know what I mean? So you learn how to that. And I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill. I had all that kind of stuff. I don't know where people get this sort of information anymore. So I think there's a gap where people are falling through in terms of how to sort of understand our political process in this country. So speak a little bit about, do you feel like you're going to have to do some remedial work around, now I don't even know if it's remedial at this point, you got to do some kind of ground building work around educating people on how the political process works?
Absolutely, yes. One of the things that, when we think about our areas, and Karen mentioned it, is definitely around education. We feel as though there's an opportunity to just get to 101 basics so that people know where to go. Who are my legislators? Karen mentioned our website, and that was one of the things that was really important to us, is to make sure that people can access the links that can get you to who, in New Haven, you have your alders. In Hamden, you have your legislative council. What are they responsible for? Understanding, what elections are coming up, Board of Education members, all of those things. So yes, it is very important that we don't assume that everybody knows the process, right? So we need to make sure that we can, we'll be running campaigns to share information. We're going to, come up with all different types of ways to engage people and make sure that, we are educating them about the overall process and how they fit into it, because we all do. And as you mentioned, all politics are local. There are a lot, there are local elections that, 2021, in Hamden, we'll have a mayoral race, we'll have our legislative council race, so these are things that we're gearing up towards, and we want to make sure that people are aware of what's coming into this so that they can figure out how they want to participate, voting, and, they can be poll workers, all types of ways to engage in the overall process.
So it's 5 founders, 3 of y'all are here. Who are the other 2?
So our other 2 are Keisha Red-Hannons, who is a New Haven native and now a Hamden homeowner, education professional and leader in the New Haven Public Schools, and Pia Garrow, who is a New Haven business owner who's passionately committed to affordable home ownership in the city and has been doing a lot of work around that end. Okay, so it's not lost on me that y'all are Deltas.
There is that.
And I count myself in that number too. Absolutely. And so it is not lost on me.
You know, Delta Sigma Theta is formed out of social activism, but everything we do as Deltas, we do in the nonpartisan realm. Mm-hmm. And this is something we've done separately. We are bonded through Delta certainly, but this is something we've done very separately from Delta and allows us to be engaged in partisan politics in a way to really move forward an agenda for our city and our town.
So Karima just stepped down from being the New Haven Alumni Chapter President. because we had elections and we have a new president. And so, so Karima, it feels like to me that this is a natural trajectory to that leadership role. Talk a little bit about what this means for you and how you see this more or less still leadership.
Absolutely. So yes, just stepped down and so excited about our new leadership. So, congrats to all of the new leaders. But yes, I think that one of the things that I found out as I was just recently elected to the Hampden Democratic Town Committee in 2019. I had to think about that.
Congratulations.
So this, like, okay. So this year, actually, 2020. What I found, what I quickly found, is that many of the skills that it requires to play and to navigate in the political field versus in the public service field are transferable skills, right? So I definitely think it is an opportunity for leadership. I can tell you that what I enjoy about the whole process is getting to work with people. So I think, like I said, I worked in corporate America 20 years. I was I dealt with project management, did the work, leadership in Delta. And so I think it's just the perfect timing, like Lamar mentioned. I've always wanted to do more in the city of Hampden. And so I'm so grateful that I have an opportunity, to support both New Haven and Hampden and making sure that, we're getting people engaged in the overall process. So it just worked out perfect timing. And I'm really excited about the work we're engaged in.
Mm-hmm. So what about this climate, Karen, that makes this, because you didn't do this last year, you didn't do this the year before. What is it about this particular climate and this moment that says, you know what, this is the right time to do this?
I think it's this, in the midst of the COVID pandemic, everyone got very focused on the disparities in health, in the impact of COVID and on the health outcomes of COVID, and that raised community awareness about racial inequities. And then in the midst of that, we had the very visible violent killings of unarmed Black Americans all across this country, all happening at the same time, which really just led to an eruption of community activism here and elsewhere and abroad, right? Focused on the fact that this country has got to reckon with its legacy and continued expressions of racial injustice and inequity. And so it's a moment where I saw a lot of amazing charitable giving happening, an amazing conversation happening, and the sort of other piece that I felt like was really needed in this moment was, how are we ensuring that all of this activism, all of this talk, all of this awareness also translates into political power? And this felt to be one way where we could contribute to that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So your first order of business will be what?
So our first order of business has already been increasing community awareness around census and elections. There are elections coming up. And so we want to make sure that in the midst of a pandemic that everybody continues to know, and a bit of a debacle in the last round of in the primary around the mail-in ballots. We're focused on getting information out so that people know the best ways that they can safely vote in this upcoming election. Our next order of business is certainly getting up our website with all of our position pieces out there so people see that, so that we can continue to be engaged in community education around those. And then moving into our next endorsement cycle.
Mm-hmm. So Lamar, talk a little bit about what this will mean for women in your circle, in your networks, and how do you move forward with talking about political activity to people who may not feel like politics is for them?
So I definitely agree, because I'm one of the people who say politics was not for me. So like I said, this was a stretch for me, but honestly, it starts at the heart. It really does. You have to have those heart-to-heart discussions and conversations. Right now, as Karen, as you mentioned, and Karen, it's the climate. You got to strike when it's hot. You know, everyone's seeing it. The visibility of just like the blatant disregard for basically any type of civil justice. You know, and so for my circle, it's more or less having those girlfriend conversations and just
What is that?
Is that?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, that's my
Oh,
my
right.
my phone.
Oh, because I was about to say, Harry, are the Russians coming for us again? We have a running joke. Like
So
disrupt the show.
Right. Sorry, that's my Texas. I tried to turn it over, it didn't work. But so basically just the foundation, just laying that foundation, those talks and education. People aren't comfortable speaking about things they're not well versed on or not aware of. So we have to raise that provide that visibility. I know that we have had some experiences in, you know, just like some of my girlfriends, they actually they protest, they actually go out, and some blog, and you know, and I joined a pack. So, you know, so we're all coming from different angles, but we want all the same change, you know. I'm not sure if you want me to speak about how people could actually donate and contribute.
You can say, girl, you better go ahead. Come on now.
Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about the so the PAC, being that it's a state political action committee. We do have certain stipulations and restrictions, but we only accept funds from individual PACs and other PACs in Connecticut, from the state of Connecticut. So individuals can contribute up to $1,000 per calendar year. So up until 12/31, you can donate $1,000. Now, as of January 1st, you can start that $1,000 all over again. And we will accept that gladly. But
I love when finance, see how excited she gets, you know, finance people get excited when they talk about money, right?
Right.
Yeah, she got all excited, like, okay, this is what you can do.
I don't know, it's just got it honest. So yeah, so you can donate up to $1,000 up until 12/31 for this calendar year. And Connecticut state political action committees, if you know your missions align with us and you're like in what we're about and what we're trying to do, you can donate up to $2,000 for the calendar year. Now, there are, like I said, there are certain stipulations. The contributors, you must be a U.S. citizen or a foreign national with permanent status. So that is a requirement. Individuals under 18 years of age, you can only donate up to $30. It's greatly appreciated, but you only can donate up to $30. Now, we don't accept any funds from business entities, labor unions, candidate committees for statewide office, or probate judges, out-of-state PACs, and other excluded entities. So there are a few things, but you know, there's a lot of ways you can give. We did have our launch goal of $10,000. We actually are halfway there. So I think it's great because we only had one launch so far, and so I think we're on the way. And you know, hopefully after this chat, we can definitely continue for there. So there are a few ways you can donate, though. So as Karen mentioned, our website will be launched by the end of this weekend. There is a link that you can actually go to on the website to donate, or you can actually enter the address. I'll provide it for you. secure.ella-s-fund/donation. Or what you can do is you can mail a check or money order to Ella's Fund PAC, P.O. Box 4139, Hamden, Connecticut 06514. Now, if you do prefer to mail in a donation, you can reach us at ellisfundpack@gmail.com, and we'll provide you an individual contributor form where you would have to answer those questions about whether you're, you know, a U.S. citizen or foreign national. So that is required with your donation. If you are to send that to us without the form, we'll go ahead and send you the form back so you can fill it out. We'll send you an email, you know, whichever way, but we appreciate, you know, all that you can donate. So it's really important that, we continue to contribute and give back to our community. I strongly believe it is a village. The New Haven and Hampton communities are closely knit, and it's important that we continue to support each other in every way. I want to say Ella, she had a quote that really, really resonated with me, and I like to say it.
Go ahead. It might be the one I like too.
Okay. Oppressed people, whatever their level for formal education, have the ability to understand and interpret the world around them, to see the world for what it is, and to move to transform it. Now, it's important that we take that opportunity to educate ourselves and make those changes that are required for us and that benefit us. It's too many times that we're left in the dark, and no pun intended, but it is we have to find the light, and it's important that we continue to support each other. So, and it's a time for accountability right now. We have to hold each other accountable. And so if you have any questions, you can definitely contact us at ellisfunpack@gmail.com, or our individual Facebook pages will definitely be available.
Social media.
Yes,
we're up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for Ellis Fun Pack. And our website is ellisfunpack.org. So visit us there and get more information on that as well. So, Babz, I'd love to know what your favorite.
I was going to say that. What's your quote? Yeah.
Oh, you already know. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons becomes as important to the rest of the country as the killing of white mothers' sons, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. And Sweet Honey in the Rock has an Ella song that speaks to these same words. And so, it's not lost on me that this song and these words were written so many years ago, and they're so very much relevant and with us to this day. So I so appreciate y'all coming on this morning. I'm excited to see what y'all do. I want to support, so feel free to come back and make this your home anytime you want to come back and update the community about what you're doing, who you're supporting, and however way we can use this platform for the good of our community. I want to do it. So this is your home. Feel free to call me. I'm like, Babz, we coming on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day. And we open the doors. So thank y'all for this. I appreciate
what you're doing for the community. LoveBabz, LoveTalk. So,
thank y'all. Good to see my sisters this morning. I will see y'all in these social media streets doing social justice work. So thank y'all. Enjoy your weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Harry, that was a good conversation. Another good conversation with based on the works of Ella Baker. And so now, next up, I'm going to be talking to Lisa Dent, who is the new executive director of Art Space. She's been here for a minute, but she's new to me, and she's fairly new to the city. And so she's going to come on and talk about Art Space and her, and arts in the community and all that good stuff. So I'm excited to welcome her to this community. Good morning, Lisa Dent.
Good morning. How are you?
How are you?
I am very well this morning, getting settled into my new place, which I'm excited about.
Where's your new place? Where are you?
I moved into Westville. Yeah.
Did you buy a house? Are you renting? What are you doing? You got a tent?
Yeah, I'm in a house. It was pretty clear I needed some outdoor space. So I was able to find something with a little backyard, which made me happy.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's nice. And that's not a hard do here in New Haven. Do you know what I mean? Like, space is not a premium like it's in other places.
Yes.
So how long have you been here?
I moved in May initially. I had been working since the beginning of April. Most of the work has been remote until we opened our exhibition, Revolution on Trial, in July. So I was slowly moving from Harlem, bringing things back and forth for a while. And now I'm feeling like I'm getting settled in. It's great.
Okay. Okay, so you kind of inherited the revolution exhibition.
Oh yeah, this is an exhibition that's been in the planning stages for a couple of years. And curators Latanya Autry and Sarah Fritchie had met, and Latanya had given a walking tour as part of her work when she was at the Yale University Art Gallery. And the walking tour was giving a history of Black liberation movements in New Haven, and particularly the locations where the Black Panther chapter was active. And Sarah then learned about May Day, which was the day of protest against the incarceration of 9 members who were put on trial at the time for attempted murder and several other charges related to the death of one of the members. It's a fascinating story. The May Day, event brought thousands of National Guardsmen to the New Haven Green to try and settle things down. It was a really challenging time, and I think you understand the impact of that when you realize 4 days later, National Guardsmen were at Kent State University and had murdered students. So
yeah,
there was very much the possibility that that kind of tragedy could have happened in New Haven. Fortunately, it did not. But the curators thought it was a moment to honor the 50th anniversary of that day by asking new artists to bring their ideas around liberation movements today in response to what had happened in the past, and talk about some of the new organizations that have come up, and bring forward those ideas 50 years later.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so how well received was it? Because you had a conversation with there was a conversation between Angela Davis and Ms. Huggins.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of all kinds of activity around this exhibition. I know Mercy Quay did some stuff, some beautiful stuff. So it's been a wonderful tribute to that particular moment in history, and it still happened even in the midst of COVID.
Yes, and I have to hand it to the artists and Mercy Quay of the Narrative Project for needing to pivot, all of them, in the work that they were asked to do in the time of COVID. And the fact that all of them were able to still produce amazing work while needing to social distance, while not having access to some of the fabricators and vendors that they would normally work with. It's just truly, for me, an example of what Black and Brown people can do in these times, really difficult times. We don't stop trying to create beauty in the world and showing people what love is.
Right, and that's a whole history. I mean, we can go back to 1619 and beyond, and you will find love and community. Even in the most desperate of times, right?
Absolutely,
that is our history. So tell me a little bit about you, Lisa. Like, what made you say yes to New Haven?
Oh, it's funny because I previously worked at an arts foundation, and a couple of artists who had received our grant were living in New Haven and loving it. So this is about 6 years ago, and started to say, oh, come to New Haven. Why don't you move to New Haven? And I hadn't considered it.
Because you're like, where the hell is New Haven? I don't know where that is.
And the last time I'd been to New Haven was Yale University's campus when my very smart older sister was being recruited. It was certainly not necessarily where I wanted to go, and it ended up not being where she wanted to go. But I didn't have a good context for what it meant to live here. But more importantly, I knew about Art Space. I had been visited exhibitions a few times. I had met the previous executive director, Helen Cowder. I understood what the mission was, and that was the most important to me. So I made a decision several years ago that I only wanted to work at artist-centered organizations. And I didn't necessarily have to all be a space like ArtSpace that presents exhibitions. I didn't necessarily need to be in a gallery that was selling work, but I needed to know that the leadership and the board were thinking about bringing contemporary work by artists to audiences, even if some of that work would be challenging, and supporting kind of alternative to ideas to what might be in the, the national media at any given time.
And what does that mean?
I think for me, it means that we're offering a place where the main concern is not
The white gaze.
the white gaze and who we are, supporting financially, right? That we are, the idea is not necessarily to make as much money as we possibly can and to profit from it, that we are looking at ways to educate, that we are involved in supporting artists in a way that they can better support themselves, and that we also are helping audiences consider ideas that they may not see in mainstream media. So think there's not a way, I feel like, outside of games where you can look at things that are happening in virtual reality or the augmented reality work that's happening that creates something that is not just a representation of, or trying to be a representation of, what we see every day, that it might show us and reveal things that are new, and especially for artists who are interested in creating, that we are a platform to support them in wanting to create new things that may not be needing to go to production for the mass market, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the main thing isn't necessarily how many of these things can we sell, that we want to educate and ask questions and think about some of the big challenging questions in the world through the visual artist lens.
So now that you're here and you're fully here now, I mean, you got some place to live and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when does the season start for you? Like, when do you say, okay, here is what I imagine ArtSpace should look like? Like, when do you put your own stamp on it? Because you inherited stuff. So when does that run out and you begin?
There have been some funding for programs for next year, and I've been in conversation with the funders to think about how we can make some of the promises we made happen, but also do that in a way that I think connects New Haven to each other in the world in, I think, more productive ways. So I think it'll be next year in September when you'll begin to see the way in which I'd like to continue with programming and visitor engagement at ArtSpace.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, you have a really rich background. Let's see, I'm looking at your bio a little bit, and you were the Helena Rubinstein Fellow at MoMA, which is you held staff positions at the New Museum of Contemporary Art. So is contemporary art your favorite thing? Like, what is it about contemporary art that you feel connected to?
Yeah, I wish I could pinpoint exactly the moment, but I knew by the end of my freshman year in college that I wanted to work with living artists. I'd been more of a theater person in high school, decided not to pursue that in college, went in undeclared, wandered into my first liberal studies class, which was an art history class, and suddenly realized that this is exactly how I was taught to see the world. I happened to have a mother who would take us to museums, and we would learn about different cultures through their objects. And that was a way that I understood to study, to learn, to educate myself, was what was made, who made it, why was it made. And I think I was always around artists. I felt more connected to people who were making work like that. And so it felt like a natural progression to find ways to support them. I used to make things, but I wasn't a great drawer. I did some photography, but pretty quickly I realized my passion was not to have people see what I had made, and that instead I wanted to, support other people and create spaces where they could show what they had made.
And that's a real talent. That's a necessary talent.
And I had learned that, so that my first internship was at one of the Smithsonian Institution's museums for contemporary art, the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden, and in Washington, D.C., when I was a student at Howard. And I learned that this was a profession, that this was something that I could do. I think it took me a long time to find how I could do it without feeling like I was so different, or my way of working was so strange and challenging. I think museums then and even now have a lot of work to do in terms of inviting in staff from different backgrounds and understanding the work styles and ways that we do things. So, as I got older, I just found that my sweet spot was finding a small institution, with, just about 4 or 5 employees really working together and doing great things in order for living artists to be able to do what they do.
And so as a Black woman moving through all these spaces, you went to undergrad at Howard? Is that where you went, Howard? Okay. Mm-hmm. And so going into these museum spaces that are historically not Black spaces, or don't have a whole lot of Black people, how did you sort of keep your sanity? How did you hold yourself in those spaces?
It was pretty lonely for a while, I have to say. I mean, there were other art students at Howard who were my friends, and there were a couple of art history students. It was a pretty small department. But when I was interning at the Hirshhorn, I felt fortunate that there was another Black woman working in education department who had selected me for the internship along with a couple of other women. But I just found that I was being asked to, I think, not speak up as much and temper like the way that I process things. And I think the biggest challenge for me was that I had selected Howard because I intentionally wanted to learn more about African and African American art and art history. But pretty quickly saw that knowledge was not encouraged or necessarily important in those larger institutions. So instead of feeling like I walked in as an expert as anyone else was, by the time I was working at MoMA in New York, for instance, the artists I knew weren't being talked about as much. And there were only a couple of curators that were even spending time studying these artists and learning about these artists. So I felt really different, and I didn't have the kind of self-esteem at that time to just say, well, I don't care about them, I'm going to do my own thing. I then tried to read and learn and just know even more, with the idea that everyone must know both. It took me a while to realize that a lot of my colleagues actually were never going to spend time learning about African American art or art history or African art and didn't feel it was necessary, and somebody else could do that, and there was less of a place for it and need for it in a lot of these institutions.
And so when you realize that, Lisa, what do you do? What do you do when you realize that? When you have that moment, when you have those moments of they're not going to, just what you said. So what do you do? How do you still have a love for this, or do you change what you love, and do you build on what other people who find beautiful and attractive and worthy of conversing about?
So for me, I actually took a break because I thought it was very confusing. And about 4 or 5 years after I had been in New York, I just decided that I was going to do something else. I was going to focus more on theater and film production, and I was designing scenery, and I was, doing this other work. I do think that theater and film people are more used to working collaboratively, and there were more Black and brown people participating in that, certainly because this was after Spike Lee, and there were more opportunities for people and encouragement to do those things. But a few years later, I realized that there was something about what happens in the visual arts that appealed to me more, which is that I think visual artists pay more attention to what materials they're using when they're great and why they're using them, and are interested in talking about the world through those materials in a way that theater and film artists are not necessarily interested in. So it was where I meant to be. And so I had actually moved back to my hometown of San Francisco, and I just was working an admin job at the San Francisco Opera, thinking, well, maybe, this will just be fine. But I ended up opening my own gallery. I just couldn't stop supporting these artists, the perfectly fine 9-to-5 job with healthcare and all these things. And I
paid the rent, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. And I just said, I wasn't the nonprofits that were there and the other galleries, I wasn't seeing a space that really supported artists of color in their sort of late emerging mid-career, and that people that I thought were doing really important work. I didn't see that they had a space to exhibit, so I wanted to create one. And I did that for a few years before I went back to curatorial work. And just it began the journey of being really clear about what I needed, the kind of institution I needed to work in, what I needed around me in order to do this work, and to neither apologize for it or feel like I was doing something less than something fantastic,
So you find yourself in New Haven at Art Space. When you walk in, when you take the job and you walk in and you already inherited some stuff, do you come in with a sense of, I know what I want to do. I have a sense of what could play well here. I have a sense of what needs to happen that's missing in these art spaces.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because interviewing can be really challenging for these jobs. There was a period of time when there would be this question like, what is your vision for the space? And I think thankfully that question might have gone away, because I personally think it's important to be responsive to the area that you live and to the community and the economic system that you work in. So it took me a few months. I would say just in the last month or so, I've been more clear about what I think the potential is for art space and how we can still have a connection to its history, its amazing 30-year history as an alternative space, showing some great artists over the years, and continue to do that. And also consider New Haven City as a primary audience, and the national, regional, or national audience, but that it doesn't need to be either or. And how can we do that in not just being in the city, but in our very particular location in downtown New Haven, and in our very particular, 5,000 square feet that used to be a retail location. How does the architecture of that building impact the way that we are seen in the community, and how we show work?
So that's wonderful to think about it that way.
Yes, and I'm thankful also that we were able to open safely, asking people to wear masks and social distance, because I did need to be at Art Space and see audiences come through, see how people are moving back and forth in the street, see how the city flowed when people are starting to go back to work, and have a slightly better understanding of who is coming, why are they coming to the show, and what other things have they done with Art Space that they felt really great about, but what other things made them not feel connected, and how could we improve upon that?
So do you feel like, Lisa, that you can push the envelope? Is New Haven ready for edgier stuff or different kinds of things that are, I don't like to use the word safe, but I understand safe in the context of, choosing something that doesn't stir controversy as opposed to something that's like, oh, okay, this is pretty.
I actually think New Haveners are, and I think that our current exhibition has shown that to me, because the work is not all easy, and there's beauty in some of it, but it's not because it's figurative. Not all the work is a clear representation of Black people. It's takes a little bit longer to read and to learn and to understand why some of the objects were made and what they're made of and what they're made from. So I've felt like I've been able to use this exhibition to help people see that the use of a material can be very important and not something that you know right away. And if you're willing to spend time with it and understand where that material comes from, why that material is available, you begin to understand the political economy of our city, our region, our country. And I think that you can do that and still have something that's visually compelling, like that you want to look at, that's really interesting, that's beautiful. It doesn't have to be something that you cringe when you look at. And those really do tend to be artists that I think are exceptional. They have the ability to transform materials in such a way that we see it in a way that we've never seen it before, so that we can begin to talk about where it comes from, why it comes from there, what it's connected to, and learn more about the world around us.
So what's the Art Space season? Like, what's up now? What comes next? Like, how do you run this space?
So this season, this year, which is our fiscal year is July through June. So we tend to think of the year in that context. So after Revolution on Trial closes on October 17th, we are going to spend a couple of weeks putting together the next show, which is Who Governs, curated by a local historian named Frank Mitchell.
I know Frank Mitchell.
Yeah.
He's a New Haven treasure.
Yes, exactly. So it was actually Sarah who invited Frank to do a project, and he decided he wanted to look at a book called Who Governs by Ronald Dahl, and who was a Yale sociologist who used the city of New Haven to look at the data around the demographics of the city, to talk about how resources are deployed through government. And you having artists think about this book, the ideas behind this book, we're commissioning 2 artists to make new work. We're bringing in a few other works, one that had previously been shown several years ago, an artist hoping to engage people in a conversation about civic duty. And so we're really trying to use it as an opportunity to talk about how and why New Haven itself has the resources that it has for people, but maybe even beyond, help people understand how these decisions get made in government.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so, do you when you decide a year, a curatorial year? Do you say that curatorial year?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think of building it? Do you say, you know what, I'm a woman, I need to build in some women things. I'm Black, I need to build in some Black things. I'm a Black woman, I need to build in some Black woman things. Like, do you think like that? Do you have to be thinking about all the layers and labels that you are and bring to this job in creating a year of exhibition, a season of exhibition?
I think you do. I think it's important to help your audience come to exhibitions, public programs, other things over a period of time and build knowledge slowly around a certain idea. And I was actually really thrilled that Helen Cowder and Sarah Fritchie had already taken on this idea of a theme that would sort of be over an entire year. And I do think that we will continue to do something like that. And so that in our next year, we are hoping to look at the relationship between US and international cities, and some of the artists who are spent half their lives in other places and then chose New Haven as their home. So we're trying to think about what that relationship is, why that happens, and what kind of artistic production comes out of that, and thinking about that relationship. So that will drive our exhibitions and programs next year in the way that Society and Civic Duty is driving programs this year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Art Space is a gallery, a performance spaces, all these things. How do you raise money to keep these doors open?
Do you think
about that?
Oh yeah. In fact, that's my main job. People often ask me about, what exhibitions am I going to do, as a curator, but I am not going to be the curator. My main focus is to raise money and build audiences. And that's another way that I've been really thrilled by the local support for Art Space already, that there are donations coming in and continue to come in right now. Actually, we are in the middle of our fall fundraiser. We have a silent auction site where you can purchase artwork from area artists as well as donate to Art Space right now. And I've received any donations anywhere from $10 to $5,000 from individual over the last 6 months who have either reached out and said they were excited about, a new team and wanted to see what Art Space was going to be doing, and wanted to support anything and everything we were doing. I've been in conversation with the foundations who have previously supported Art Space quite a lot, and thinking about how to support it in the future. So a lot of my job is, at some part every day, I'm talking to people about fundraising, because the truth of the matter is we are in a challenging place. We did have a full-time staff member responsible for programming, and we don't have that right now, where I'm the full-time employee and we have several part-time people and interns right now. But there are things that we don't have as an institution that we really need to have. We need more funding to maintain our 5,000 square foot space. We need funding to support our staff because currently there is no healthcare plan for staff at ArtSpace. And in the middle of COVID, that makes it extremely challenging, and is something that I think needs to be changed. And so we need funding to support professional development workshops that we can have subsidized so that artists are only paying $5 or $10 to take a workshop, an important class, rather than 50 or 100. And so we're able to keep a lot of our costs to the artists low because of these foundations that are supporting us. And so we need to keep that going.
And so I don't know anything about your board. How is your board?
Yeah,
and how many people on this board?
Yeah, they're great. I mean, for me, right now, it's a fantastic combination of artists. We have 5 artists on the board. We have local civic leaders who work at other area nonprofits. We have an attorney, an architect, people work in hospital administration. I mean, and the diversity of that includes the fact that so many are women and people of color on our board. So I'm thrilled.
That seems to be a big deal because I serve on a bunch of boards around, and everybody's having these conversations because historically boards, nonprofit boards, arts boards have been white, just white, just white. And so and so you've been following along the national conversation around arts institutions that are Black folks at art institutions are starting to speak out. They've signed a letter talking about these are the things that we need to have happen to be inclusive, not only diverse but inclusive.
Yes.
And so it's good to hear that the ArtSpace board is diverse. Is it as diverse as you want it to be?
Honestly, it's really good. I think what I would like to see are the people of color that are on the board are largely artists or on the artistic side. I think that I would like to see business leaders or civic leaders of color on our board, and we're slowly getting there. I too often think that also the people of color on a board are meant to speak for the community, whatever the community necessarily means for them. And I think that I'd like to see board members who are actually brought on for their expertise around, fundraising, organizational structure or management, and HR, things like that, that are really part of the skill set of a lot of people and who are not necessarily brought to the table as board members of nonprofits. And
how big is your staff over there? How many people you got on staff over there?
So it's myself. There are 2 part-time staff people who were there when I started. And just in the last couple of weeks, we've been able to add 1 person who works full-time through the Public Ally Program of AmeriCorps. Anissa Carter has just started and is an amazing addition. We have another person who decided not to go to Yale this semester for a variety of reasons, as you can imagine, around COVID. So they're going to be working here. And this is somebody who actually grew up in New Haven as well. And another young woman who's a Yale student who's coming in part-time. So that's who we're working with now.
Okay, all right. So have you enjoyed any of COVID put a damper on a lot of the social activities that go on in this town, because this is a very social town. And it really is it's a good town to eat and drink in, right? It's a good town to take in theater. It's a good town to take in intellectual pursuits. COVID has really sort of put a damper on a lot of that. But you know, this town is resilient in a lot of ways, and trying to figure out ways to sort of give people back those kinds of activities
Yeah.
safely. So
Yeah.
what have you been enjoying since you've been here?
I recently went to Amarante's cafe on the water. And, you know, as someone from California, to be able to be this close to water and sit and look at the sunset that way, it was heaven. It was there was music, it was an amazing singer, and it was fantastic. Hoping to check out, is it Anthony's down the road?
Yes, Anthony's down the road.
Maybe next week.
Well, you can just go to City Point. There's Shell and Bones in City Point, which is a little closer. And you can sit right on the water there too. You know, sits right at the end of a historical neighborhood.
I went hiking once. This was early, you know, I think July. Went hiking with some folks from Next Haven, with Nico Whedon and some of the artists there. We walked from Westville into the park, but it was so wonderful. What else?
She's a good friend. I was with her the other week.
Oh yeah,
having a happy hour with her and her husband.
Yes, and you know I lived by Edgewood Park recently, which was really fascinating when you realize that Frederick Olmsted had designed it, as well as the edge of Central Park, where I would go with my dog when I was living in Harlem. So it was very similar, and is a great walk for me and my dog. And then Orange Street, where Art Space is, you know, it has closed to driving traffic. So they've created, you know, one of the downtown beautiful outdoor seating areas for the restaurants that are on our block. And it's been great to be able to have events there on the street, outside, in front of us. So I've really started to enjoy walking around downtown and seeing people again.
Have you engaged in the pizza wars?
You know, and if you'd asked me 10 years ago, they're so real. And I almost took an apartment in Worcester Square between the two rivals, and I thought, I can't be right here. And you know, 10 years ago, I would have dived right into it. You know, my digestion at this age is not appreciation pizza as much. But I did just hear about the white clam pizza, and it kind of thought, that does sound good.
Yeah. These pizza wars are very real here. Like they're international.
Yes. And because several people who knew I was moving asked me, which is it, Sally's or what? Like, what's your pizza?
Sally's or Pepe's or Mod. I'm gonna throw Delena's in there because I can't have dairy. So so they do a wonderful, they do beautiful vegan pizzas.
Okay.
Beautiful vegan pizzas that rival that holy trinity, you know, Sally, Pepe, and Modern. The holy trinity of pizzas.
Exactly.
So yeah, okay. Well, you will get dragged in, no doubt. You'll make you'll try them all, and then you'll make your decision.
Yes.
And it's an ongoing war. So okay. Exactly. Well, it has been my pleasure talking to you, Lisa. I'm so glad that you're here. I want to support whatever you do. Feel like this is your home. If you want to come and talk to the community in any way that you like, and talk about what's coming, and you know, feel free to come here. Call me up and say, Babz, I need to get on a Thursday, and we can make it happen.
Yes. Love it.
So yes,
you know, this is exactly the kind of community support that I was seeing in New Haven, and why I was excited to be here. So thank you so much.
And I have not been over to see the exhibit. So now that I know it ends in October, I will make a beeline.
Yes.
To come see it. I've heard good things about it, really good things about it. So I'm going to get over there before it leaves, and see it. So, and I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to my city and my town. And whatever I can do to help make this journey here better, or I don't know, whatever, call me.
Thank you. I will take you up on that.
Yes, please do. Please do. And there's a lot of other places to eat other than those, the Holy Trinity pizzas. So,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
thank you, Lisa Dent.
Okay.
Be well and enjoy your weekend.
I will. All right. You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. All right. Bye-bye. Harry will come back on. Hey, Harry.